Hello and thanks for joining us on Team Reptile Adventures. On a previous adventure of Team Reptile, we hooked up with Buckley's Mountainside Canoes of Mount Pleasant, Michigan to check out the turtle population of the Chippewa River within the Mount Pleasant area. Now, Buckley's had been hearing from a number of the people who were canoeing there that they were seeing painted turtles. Although we knew there might be painted turtles on the river, we were pretty confident that most people were actually seeing map turtles and calling them or mistaking them for painted turtles. Well, we decided to check it out, so we went out there on the river, and not only did we find just map turtles, no painted turtles, but we also had an exciting find, and we found a wood turtle, which is on Michigan's threatened species list. Now, since that time, we've kept in contact with Buckley's, and we've been excited to hear that they've been helping to educate people that come on the Chippewa about the turtle species of the river, and also about how important it is to not take turtles from the river for either personal or commercial use. Now, one thing that Jacob, who's the owner of Buckley's, had asked me the last time I was out there was, did I think there were any painted turtles on the river, or were people just actually seeing map turtles and calling them painters, which is really a very common mistake. Well, I said there probably are painters on the river, but unfortunately we didn't see any on either time that I've been out there, so there's no way for me to verify it. Well, Buckley's continues to get reports from people that they've seen painted turtles out there, and Jacob and the rest of the staff at Buckley's was curious, and of course we were curious, and we thought, well, what better way to find out than to head back out to the Chippewa.
We headed out to Mount Pleasant and made our way over to Buckley's Mountainside Canoes. The plan was for us to be dropped off a few miles upstream, where we would then be able to travel downstream along the river searching for wildlife until we got right back here at Buckley's. Once we were all in the van, one of the staff members from Buckley's drove us upstream a few miles where they dropped us off so we could get started. We paired up in 3 canoes and began making our way downstream while searching for signs of wildlife both in the water and on the shore. We noticed right away that there were lots of fish swimming nearby, including some brook trout. As we traveled down the river, we started to see quite a few common map turtles, just as we had expected. Although we did see some smaller map turtles on logs, it was mostly the large female adult map turtles that were out basking. Part of the reason that map turtles are so successful on the Chippewa River is because of the high number of downed trees that extend out over the water. These not only provide the turtles with great locations to bask, but also gives them great cover for protection. Because the Chippewa River is a fairly shallow river, it means that these map turtles need to be able to hide under things to be able to stay away from predators or any type of danger. As you can see, anytime we got close to these map turtles, they would drop down from their basking spots into the water and scoot down underneath the logs where they would burrow and hide. It was really cool to see how high up on logs some of these map turtles would climb, and just as awesome to watch them drop to the water from these heights.
Oh wow, look at those way up there. They're way up on the log.
Oh, they are.
Whoa, that was awesome.
That one's definitely worth watching back in slow motion. After the excitement of the big map turtle plopping in, we decided to make our way further down the river. We still hadn't seen any painted turtles, but by now we had seen over 20 maps. During one of our stops, the search for wildlife along the shore, I picked up an empty clamshell from the bottom to show the other Team Reptile members. On our last trip out to Buckley's, we had discovered quite a few of these freshwater clams, which are a big part of the map turtle's diet. As I was setting the clamshell down, I found a crayfish crawling along the river floor.
Attack of the crustaceans.
Roar!
This would actually be another reason that the map turtles could do well here, is because they also like to feed on crustaceans, especially the females with those wider heads. And the crayfish falls within the crustacean family. And they make a tasty treat for such turtles as the common map turtle, and also musk turtles, which there could possibly be some out here. I haven't seen any yet, but they're generally more of a nocturnal feeder. And then also the Blandings turtle, which they've had a couple of reports they found those out here, and we know they're in the area. And Blandings turtles just love crayfish. We let the crayfish go back in the river and went on our way. Amanda, Heather, Whitney, and Jake decided to go up ahead of us in search of painted turtles, while Amy and I decided to continue looking along the shoreline for some other wildlife. We hadn't gotten very far when we spotted a white-tailed fawn laying on the bank. Because white-tailed fawns are so vulnerable to predators, their best protection sometimes is to lay motionless while their mother is away. The combination of their spots, which help to break up their pattern against the background, and the fact that they produce little to no body odor, makes them very difficult for predators to locate by sight or smell. It also means that they will usually lay completely still until a predator is almost right on top of them. Amy and I could see that the fawn's mother was approaching from about 25 yards back, so we decided to see how close we could get to the fawn before it would run. I can honestly say that nothing has scared me more than when I have walked within just a couple of feet from a fawn without knowing it was there, and then it suddenly jumped up to run.
That was awesome.
There's the mom.
We saw that the fawn made it safely to its mother, so Amy and I decided we better move on and try to catch up with the others. When we caught up with the rest of the gang, we found out that they had still not seen any painted turtles, but they had found a few more map turtles along their travels. We decided to take a quick break so Amy and I could tell the others about the white-tailed fawn we had seen. As we started to head downstream again, we had our first close call of a canoe collision.
Yeah, figured while I'm backwards, I might as well film you guys. Coming straight at us.
Straight at us.
This could be a problem. Oh no.
Fortunately, Amy and I were able to move up a bit while Heather and Amanda got their bearings and hung back. It's pretty obvious how inexperienced of canoers we are, isn't it? Although we love the wildlife along this river, one of the other reasons that Amy and I wanted to bring out some of the other Team Reptile members to the Chippewa was just because of the lovely scenery along the way.
This is cool.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
Whoa! Shut us up.
While Amy was still searching for animals like we were supposed to be doing, I had started to lose my focus and was watching a car going over the bridge that we had just went under.
The little one to the left.
Car!
See the little guy to the left, Rich?
What?
See the little guy to the left?
No.
On the rock?
We knew we were getting closer to the end of our trip, and we wanted to take a couple map turtles back to show the staff at Buckley's, so we thought this one right here would be a good one to catch.
Right here? Yeah, if you guys can. Go for it.
The other four decided to hang back and catch this map turtle while Amy and I continued on. As we moved into an area of the river that was deeper and also had much more vegetation along the bottom, we finally saw our first painted turtle.
Looks like a painter.
The red markings on the shell, neck, and legs confirmed that we had finally found a painted turtle here on the Chippewa River.
There's definitely red on him.
Oh, it's a painter for sure.
We were really excited about finding our first painted turtle here on the Chippewa, but we still wanted to find at least a couple more of these turtles before going back and telling Buckley's that they had a painted turtle population here on the river. Amy and I decided to head up just a little bit further on the river because we could see an area that looked like it might be a great habitat for painted turtles. Unlike map turtles, painters tend to prefer calmer waters with more aquatic vegetation, making this an ideal spot. Amy and I decided to sit here for a couple minutes to search for painters as well as look at the pretty horsies. Anyways, it wasn't long after we had stopped here that we spotted a painted turtle basking on a log. Just like many species of turtles, painted turtles will often bask in the sun in order to increase their body temperature. This helps to give them more energy so they can move faster in the water when searching for prey or trying to escape from predators. While we sat here, a couple more painted turtles poked their heads above the water, but they would quickly take a breath and then disappear again beneath the surface. This at least gave us the evidence we needed to be able to say that there was definitely at least a small population of painted turtles in the Mount Pleasant area of the Chippewa River. By now the other four had caught up with us and we all started to move on, knowing that we were getting close to the end of our journey.
You're swinging.
We now had one map turtle in our possession thanks to Heather and Amanda, and we were hoping to possibly catch one more to take back to Buckley's. Since we didn't want to catch another map turtle until we had Buckley's in sight, we decided to just spend some time sightseeing and enjoying the other wildlife of the Chippewa River. As we rounded a bend, we saw a muskrat swimming toward one of the
Where'd he go?
sides. You go under the log?
Oh, there he is, way over there.
Yep, definitely a muskrat. I can tell by his tail.
He's in the branches now. It's not gonna matter.
I guess this muskrat must have really had our attention, because when we looked back at the video later on, we realized that we had completely missed this large female map turtle basking on this log. With the canoe landing now in sight, we decided to try and catch another map turtle. Whitney and Jake were able to make their way over to this basking map turtle and scoop it up before it had a chance to burrow. By catching one so close to Buckley's, it meant that we would not have to travel back upstream to let it go. We would still have the first map turtle we caught to take back upstream eventually, but we were going to keep that one for a couple days while we stayed in the Mount Pleasant area. This would give us a chance to examine some of its daily behaviors as well as its dietary preferences. Once we arrived at the landing, we took our supplies out of the canoes and waited for some of our friends from Buckley's to come out to see what we had found on our Chippewa River adventure. Come on over, Whitney. Is there a size difference between us? And I don't mean the turtles. Alright, anyways. These are both common map turtles, which is the highest number of turtles that are turtle species that we saw here on the Chippewa River, which is exactly what we expected. This one right here is probably about 3 years old. It's a female. This little one right here is probably about a year old that Whitney has. It's impossible for me to tell exactly if it's female or male right now, judging my characteristics with the size of the head and where the ven is on the tail. It looks like it's a female, but it's small enough right now that I can't be 100% positive. The other thing that kind of gives me the indication is the shell seems broader, just as this one does do too for a female. If they're a wider shell when they're young, that kind of gives you an indication that it's going to keep growing, getting more broad and also a little bit higher because they need a bigger shell to carry more eggs, a bigger egg carrying capacity. Unfortunately, we couldn't catch any of the big females because to become big females, they need to be able to survive. And what's the best way to survive? It is to, be fast, be aware, use your instincts to get away. If you see something coming at you, you run away from it, regardless of what it is, especially until they know if it's prey, it's a little different. It's going to be usually smaller than them, not bigger than them. One of the ways to tell map turtles from painted turtles is the keel. Map turtles will generally have a more jagged keel that runs down the center of their carapace or back of their shell. And as they get older, it will wear down some. Generally, not always, but it still usually comes to more of a point than a painter. A painter will usually have, especially a bigger painter, will generally have a higher dome shell, and that's one of the ways that we can usually tell from a distance if it's a map turtle or if it's a painted turtle.
It's cool how this one's so smooth compared to...
Yeah, this one's actually about the shed. See the...
Oh, is that why it's like
peeling
that?
off? It's about the shed, yeah. Which means it's healthy.
Which kind?
It's a common map turtle.
What's the common?
And this is, I was just talking about a minute ago, it's about, I would say, just from what we've seen the few times we've been out here, this is Amy and my third time being out here, and probably at least 20-to-1 ratio of map turtles a painter, at least, on the river. Now, of course, you have your little inlets, with the lily pads and everything, and the weeds, and that's where we tend to see, closer to those areas, we tend to see the painters. They usually like more vegetation. These guys eat your clams, your crustaceans. If you ever have a problem with zebra mussels,
that's interesting.
they'll start eating the zebra mussels. Yep. Especially the females. And the females, we don't have a male with us right now, but the females are the large ones. You see, the real big ones. Those will be the females, because the males only get about twice the size, where the females can get, almost 4 times the size, if not more. And the females always have the broader heads, which she's already getting it. She's pretty young, probably about 3 years old, I'm guessing. but she has, maybe even 4 years old, but she has a broader head, and as they get bigger, you'll see that they have a large head. And a lot of times people think that the males are just a younger map turtle. Even when I was a kid, that's what I thought. Well, the males just don't get that big. Same with soft-shell turtles, males don't get that big.
Do they bite? Have you put some?
Yeah, they will, but not like snappers will and everything. They're not as aggressive. Usually, the harder shell they have and the better shell structure they have, the less apt they are to be aggressive.
They don't need to be, do they?
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's why box turtles, Blandings turtles, a lot of those guys aren't as aggressive because they're better off getting in their shell, where with a snapper, you flip a snapper over, these guys have pretty good covering. So, still going to be a little bit defensive, but they don't have as strong a jaws. But a plastron, which is the bottom shell, plastron on a snapping turtle, is usually kind of almost like a cross pattern. It doesn't cover as much, a lot more meat exposed. So they have to be aggressive, and that's why they'll actually follow you. If they're the aggressor, it helps protect them. They don't like being upside down long, though, because of the way their body structure is with the ribs, and because all this is fused bone from the ribs and the vertebrae. We stood around for a while and talked about the turtles and other wildlife we had seen on the river. It was interesting to learn how many other species of animals have been seen by the Buckley staff as well as guests over the years, including eagles, beavers, turkeys, and even osprey. Although all this talk made us want to hop back in our canoes and go search for more wildlife, we knew that we better get going, at least for today. We thanked everybody at Buckley's for setting us up for our Chippewa River adventure and then started packing everything up to be on our way. Before we left, however, we still had one more thing to do. We still had to let the map turtle go that Whitney and Jake had caught back in the river. Since we had caught this turtle so close to Buckley's, we figured we could just let it go right here at the canoe ramp.
Swim away.
We said goodbye to our turtle friend and also to our friends at Buckley's and headed out on our way. With the other members of Team Reptile heading back downstate, Amy and I decided to stay one more day here in the Mount Pleasant area so we could check out some other locations that might be good for some future Team Reptile adventures. While we were exploring on a small lake in Isabella County, we discovered a painted turtle that had a fishing hook in its mouth. I've seen this a few times before and even had it happen to me once. When a turtle is swimming along and sees bait, especially earthworms or night crawlers, it goes up to feed on them and gets hooked, just like a fish would. When we found this painter like this, we knew we should take the hook out of its mouth, and we thought, why not take the opportunity to show people at home how to take a hook out of a turtle's mouth with just a simple pair of pliers. That way, if they did accidentally hook a turtle while fishing, they could probably take care of it right there on the spot as long as they had pliers or something like them in their tackle box. Now, obviously, a person's safety should be the top priority, so they shouldn't try to take a hook out of a turtle's mouth if they're concerned they could get hurt themselves. We found this painted turtle out on one of the lakes up here. We're in the Mount Pleasant area still, and unfortunately, what happened to this one has happened to many painted turtles and also other species of turtles, but especially painted turtles. There's quite a few people I know that have told me this has happened to them, and we just see it with turtles. We actually found another turtle today with a little bit of damage to their jaw that probably was caused by a hook like this. And what happens is people tend to just let the turtle go. They'll cut the line, which someone did here, and let the turtle go, which, you know what, I appreciate the fact they let it go rather than kill it, because I've had a couple people in my past tell me that they decided to kill the turtle to put it out of its misery because it had a hook in its mouth. And unfortunately, there's, or that's unfortunate, in other words, for the turtle, because there's no reason to kill a turtle just because you got a hook in its mouth. Now, I realize you don't want to put your fingers close to it because you don't want it to bite you. So, I'm going to show you a simple operation using a pair of pliers, holding the turtle. Notice how I have them so they can't dig their claws into me too bad. It's still digging into me a little bit. It doesn't tickle, I'll tell you that. This is probably a big female. Haven't even checked it out yet. Judging by the head and the size of the body, yep, that's a female. I can tell by the vent. Shell's a little more domed, so that tells me it's a female also. Although the fingernails are pretty long on her, which is usually not the case with females, but she tends to have longer nails. But what you do is, and she's gonna try to bite. It's not gonna feel good to her, but in the long run, if I can do it without her, I need to grab it first of all, and she will probably try to fight it. And it might even open up the hole there a little bit. She's closing her eyes. It's obviously painful. But if I can get it, and even needle nose would work well too. Bring your head out. I know it hurts. But I'm working it out, and that's the important thing. And you just be patient. I'm going to work with her on this. We're working together. That's not working together. She wants to bite it. She doesn't realize I'm trying to help her. If she had hooked it right in her mouth, it would actually be easier, but as you can tell, it's kind of over in the corner, which means that it's pretty jammed in there. In some situations, I have held a turtle's head to make it easier to remove a hook, just as you would from a fish. Doing this, however, can cause a lot of stress to a turtle because they're not able to pull their head and neck within their shell, which is how they protect themselves. Although this was taking longer than I had hoped, I knew the removal of the hook could be very important to the turtle's survival. I'm sure that the hook has already had some impact on the turtle's ability to feed, and it also poses a real threat to the turtle when it's foraging for food underwater. With the way this hook and line are hanging out from the turtle's mouth, they could easily get caught on something and cause the turtle to drown. I know it hurts. There we go. There we go. Open your mouth. If you open your mouth, we got it out. Hey! Now, there is going to be a little bit of a hole there. And probably what will happen, at least there's a good chance what will happen, is it will repair, but when it repairs, there's going to be a mark there. There's going to be probably some overgrowth skin. Other than that, though, it's not really going to do any harm to her. It's not going to keep her from eating. In fact, this probably hasn't kept her from eating because it was far enough over in the corner. But if she got hooked on something, and even just the pain, I mean, you can already see there's a little swelling there compared to the other side, and she'll have a lump there. I'm sure it's done some tearing away at her. But eventually, the pain that she's been feeling from this will go away. It'll heal up. Right now, I'm sure it hurts even worse because of the fact that, you know, I just pull it out. So, of course, it's going to hurt a little bit. But she'll be thankful later on. Now that our minor operation was complete, we just had to observe the turtle for a while to make sure she was okay. One good sign was that there was no blood coming from the wound, which is something that I've had to deal with before. I can honestly say that trying to stop the bleeding from a turtle's head while it's biting and clawing at you is not exactly the funnest thing I've ever done. She's still strong and feisty. I'm going to get her back in the bucket. Let her get some water on there. Although the surgery seemed to last forever, when we looked back at it, we realized that it was just over 2 minutes from the point when I first touched the hook with the pliers to the point when it was out. And although it wasn't as quick as I wanted it to be, and I'm sure it was definitely painful for her, and it was painful for me too, because it was hard to do that because I felt bad because I knew I was causing the pain. But in the long run, I know that she's better off now. And, you know, it's just like when you get stuck with something, if you get a hook in you, you're not going to want to leave it in. You want to get it out of there. I hope there's no infection. We're going to get her right back into the lake tomorrow morning. Tonight we're going to watch her, see how it does. I just want to see how much it heals up overnight, too, because in animals, things tend to heal very fast. So, and which is important for their survival, obviously. And there's many turtles that we find that are missing limbs, even have chunks taken out of their shells that have healed up, that survive a long time, and this is just a little jaw damage, so she should be fine. But I want to see in the morning how much it's healed up, just to get an idea of how, you know, how quick that rate is of healing within a painted turtle. We took the painter to the garage and put her in a large bin that we had filled with lake water, and that's where she stayed the night. The next morning we saw that she was doing well, so we decided to take her back out to the location where we had found her. As we went out on the lake, we were lucky enough to spot a female red-winged blackbird as it hopped among the lily pads searching for aquatic insects, which it then flew back to feed a fledgling in its nest. While we continued to travel along the lake, we also spotted a younger painted turtle that was crawling across the pads in search of a good spot to bask so that they can soak up some of this early morning sun. We decided to go ahead and catch this small painter so that we could try to determine its age as well as check to see whether it was a male or female. When we had caught the painter with the hook in its mouth the day before, we had also found quite a few male juvenile painters, so I was really hoping this one might be a female. This is a juvenile Midland painted turtle. Probably, I'd say it's probably about a year old, judging by the size. Might be a year and a half to 2 years at best. Judging by its features so far, I'm guessing it is a female. Just judging by the claws and also the fact that where my thumb is, it already feels like it's beginning to dome. The fact that she's trying to get away from me also tells me it's probably a female, because that's what females do. They run for. But let's see if the tail gives us any indication. Judging by the tail, the vent is far enough underneath the carapace, the edge of the carapace here, that I would also guess it's a female, although at this age it's so difficult to know for sure. But the characteristics right now are female. We let the juvenile painter go and made our way out to where we had caught the painter with the hook in its mouth the day before. Alright, so we brought the painted turtle that we took the hook out of yesterday. We brought her with us. We're going to let her go, and this is almost exactly where we caught her. She was actually back in there a little bit, but we'll let her go right here just so she can decide if she wants to go back up near the shoreline or if she wants to swim out a little. The choice will be hers, and hers alone. Although when I let her go, she'll be facing that way, so I guess I'm kind of helping make the decision. But you can see, just looking at it, it really does look like it's healed up some since yesterday. I don't think the swelling's gone down much, but the mark where the hook was seems to be closing up. And she's moving as though she never even realized she had an outpatient surgery with Team Reptile. It was really amazing to see how fast this painted turtle was recovering, and it definitely made us feel more confident about our decision to put her back in the lake today. Goodbye, my friend. We'll miss you. Now that our turtle friend was back in the lake, it was time for us to head out. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Team Reptile Adventures.